Hi, I'm Adam Culp, and you're at Beachcast. Today, we're going to document a REST API using OpenAPI and Stoplight Studio. So stick around, and we'll get right on that. Welcome back. If you want to grow as a developer and learn how to make better web applications, start now by subscribing to Beachcast, and make sure you check the notification bell so you won't miss anything. And if you find this video helpful, or if you have any questions, please leave a comment down below. So as I said, we're going to be documenting a REST API using the OpenAPI standards for documenting the API. I've been wanting to do it for a while, and I've been wanting to create a video on this for a while. I've discovered a new application out there for doing exactly that. It's from a company named Stoplight. I downloaded the application. I went to their website at stoplight.io, downloaded the application. Now I'm on Linux, so when I downloaded it, it ended up downloading as an app image, which means you don't have to really install it. You just put the app image on your hard drive, execute it, and you're up and running. It runs the program straight through the app image. So there's not really any installation really required. And what you see on the screen now is exactly what it looks like once it's open. It may have prompted me to start a project when I first opened it. I don't remember. I have created a project in here. If I click on the projects drop down, I can see that there are a couple of projects in here. Now, I apologize in advance because I have not found a way to make the fonts larger or change the interface on this yet. So I'm going to go through, and hopefully you're able to read what we're doing here. I do have things full screen, and I'm making sure to record this at very high resolution. So if you're not able to see something, check it out on a desktop versus a mobile, and maybe it'll be more readable for you. But I'll try to keep it to a minimum of the things that you might not be able to see. But like I said, I haven't found a way to make the fonts larger, so we're kind of stuck with it the way it is. Again, what I've done is I've created a project in here, and I've created the project Beachcasts, and it allows me to specify a few different things. Either I can start an API, I can start an endpoint, model, article, image, folder, or file. Any of these I can start with. I'm going to go ahead and click on API. And when I click API, it's asking me for the name of the API, 1 to 3 words, something short and easy to remember. So I'm going to go ahead and what I'm going to document for the sake of this video in earlier episodes, I'll link to those up here. I've created an API using Expressive. And I'm going to go ahead and create this some OpenAPI documentation using Stoplight Studio based on the API that I created in those earlier episodes. I'm just going to call this Beachcast API. Click Create. And once it's created it comes up to this screen here. Now, there's a couple different modes in Stoplight Studio. I could click on that and I can enable the light mode, or I can enable the dark theme. I did the dark theme just to see how it goes as far as readability. Now, to me, on the screen, it looks readable. Okay, so on the start screen, we can see that we've got some basic information that we can put in here. We can put in a description of the API. Oh. Beginning API docs. We're going to go ahead and put in the server. Now, I've got the server running from the earlier episodes, and of course we were running it on localhost :8080, so port 8080. We can put in an additional name here, which is optional for the server. So I'll go ahead and call it localhost 8080 as the name. That way we have that. Now we can put in a security schema as well. So if I wanted to make it where I was using OAuth 2, something along that lines, I could fill that in here. And anything else, I could put in contact information. Of course, I'll put in my name and put in the contact URL. And we'll put in a contact email. Not really worried about that. Terms of service. If I had a URL that had a terms of service, I could go ahead and put it in. Now I'm going to put it in here for completeness sake. Something like that. Terms of service. And then license. So what do we want to make the license of what we're working on? In this case, I'm just going to go ahead and put MIT, and the license URL we could fill in, but I'm not going to at the moment. That would be something like your Git repository URL. Like if you're using GitHub, it would be a github.com/your username / wherever the documentation is. Now, notice on the right-hand side, all of this information is being populated in the file, and this is the OpenAPI file that would be shared inside your project, and it's building it as we go. Now, additionally, we could put in some paths. So now I've got, I don't have any paths at the moment. All I have is the base description of the API. So I'm going to go ahead and add in a path, a new path. And for this API, we're going to make the path of /announcements/ hit enter on that. So now we've got that path built, and it's kind of switched context a little bit. So now we're actually editing the path. So we've got /announcements/. And this is just a Git call, just a straight Git call. Now, on the right-hand side, you'll notice that there's any docs there that are created. We haven't done anything yet, so there are no docs. However, if I click over to try it, we'll notice that there is actually a send. So I could send a request to this right now. And if I click send, then it'll go ahead and hit the API and come back with a response. So we've already got documentation that is working with our API. We were able to make that call. We got back a 200 OK, and we can see we got back the response of a list of announcements from the API, because the API is live. It's running on my local system in the Docker containers that we created in previous episodes. Now I could put in some additional documentation here. My GET request. Additionally, I could specify even more. I'm going to flip over to docs instead of try it. If I wanted to, for instance, add a body. Now this is just a GET request, so there really isn't going to be a body to pass with a GET request. It's just a naked GET request. However, I do expect a response. So if I look at response and I add one, of course I've got the response of 200 OK. I could add more responses here. I could have a 201. And it'll keep on adding them as I go. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to remove the 201 and the 200. We'll stick with just 200 for this example. I could add additional headers here if I needed to of what I'm expecting from the response. I could add a body. Now I'm going to go ahead and add the body for right now. And of course, this is by default coming back with application JSON. So, and that's exactly what we expect back from our API is application JSON. So we're going to go with that. Now, if I look over in the try where I did try that, try it again, we get back the response. And this is an example response of what I would expect back, right? So we could very easily copy and paste that over into as an example response. Let's see if I go like this, copy that, paste it over here. And then I'm going to just close this stuff off. Just like that. Okay, so I've got that closed off. So, so at that point, I've got my example there. And again, it's just a loose example to kind of get an idea. But I can come in here and I can specify the schema. So in the IDE, I'm able to specify the schema. I've got an object here because I'm expecting an object to be returned, JSON object, right? And I could click on that and I could specify more about it. Am I expecting it to be an array or a string? Is it a Boolean? Is it ref? Any of these. I'm going to leave it as an object. But now we're going to specify what we're expecting back in an object. So I'm going to click plus beside the object. And one of the things that we're expecting back, of course, is the ID. And now in the ID, you can click on the identifier for the data beside it, which right now it says string. If I click on that, I can select something else. Now in this case, I'm going to leave it string because the IDs that I'm getting back are UUIDs. So I'm going to leave it because that ID should be a string. However, if I come over here to the right, I can add additional properties to it. So I'm going to click that. And in the additional properties, I can specify a format. In this case, UUID. So now I've got a format of UUID coming back, and I could even put a pattern here of what I'm expecting it to be. And I could enter in, a regular expression pattern of what I'm really expecting back, just as validation. I don't have that right at the moment, so I'm going to go ahead and just let it ride just as UUID. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and click plus. We'll go down to the next item. Now, when we did that, you'll notice that this additional properties here, it's going to be hard to see on the video, and I apologize for that. The additional properties does have a 1 beside it because we've specified one additional property, which is the UUID. Now, the next item that we want to specify here, if I click send on this again, is the sort. So we're going to call this one sort. And for sort, we're expecting that to be numeric. So right now it's set to string. I'm going to change it to integer because I want it to be an integer. And I'm going to uncheck string. Now you can select multiple things here. In my case, I only want it to be integer. I don't want it to be string. I don't want it to be number. Again, I could select multiple things. I'm just going to select integer because I want to make sure that it's a positive integer. So now I'm going to go ahead and click plus for the next thing. Next one we're going to put in is content, because that's what we're expecting back is content. I'm also going to be expecting an is admin in his admin field, and that is not going to be a string. That's actually going to be a Boolean. So I'm going to select Boolean for that. And now I'm going to put some additional parameters over here because the isAdmin, we don't want isAdmin by default to be true, right? We want it to be false. So what we're going to do is we can specify here the default value, and we can put in a default value of what we're expecting here. Now, since this is a get, I'm not really going to add any validation for that. I'm just going to leave that blank for now because we're only receiving back information. Okay, so I'm going to do is active is another thing that we're expecting to get back. And that also is Boolean. So we're expecting Boolean back for that. I'm going to click on the next item, which is going to be created. This is going to be a date time. We're expecting a date time to be back. So we're going to stick with string as far as this goes. But then on the right-hand side for additional properties, we're going to select date time from there. Okay, so now we're expecting a string, but we're expecting a date time. Now I could easily as well, I could say, you know what, I'm expecting an object back, because if we click send on this again, you'll notice here that I am actually getting an object back for created and for modified both. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's change that to be object. I'm expecting an object back, not a string. And once we've done that, you'll notice that now there's a plus beside here, so we can add items under that. So under the created, we're expecting a few different things. And I'm expecting back 3 different things actually for the created. The first one is date. The second one is time zone. And actually the last one is time zone. The second one was time zone something. Time zone identifier maybe. Yeah, so the other one was time zone type. So I want time zone and time zone type. So type. But there was an underscore there. All right, so that's what the object looks like for created. And then of course we want to also create another field, modified. And that is also going to be an object of what we're expecting back. And then we can specify the items for that as well. So again, we have the date, and that's going to be string. But in that string, we're expecting date time. So we're going to select that. I don't think I did that before. So let's look here. Yes, I did not. So up here for the created date, we're going to put date time because that's what we're expecting back. This next one is time zone type. Time zone type is going to be, actually time zone type is going to be numeric. So let's go ahead and change that to a number. And let's change this time zone type to be a number. And then we have time zone itself, which that's going to be a string. Okay, so now this is the data that we're actually expecting to get back, the schema that we're expecting to get back. Now we of course could put that in other objects, right? We could have an object for embedded and everything. We could really build this out. But the thing is that pretty much matches what we're expecting back. Now, if I were to click up here to the top level API, and we can look on the far right, and we see that sure enough, the schema is being created. The document is being created. We've now got for our paths, we've got the get call, and we've got all of the sample data that we're expecting it to get back. So it's building it's building the OpenAPI specification and documentation as we go. And of course, we have the flexibility of being able to test that by clicking try and then testing it. Now, alternatively, if I wanted to add more things, maybe not just a get, but maybe I want to add a post, I could click a post. I can add the post operation. I can click over to put if I'm doing updates. So post would be for create. Put would be for updating. So I could add that. If I wanted to add a delete method, I could then click on delete and add that. Now, and then I can specify each one of these. I can click back and forth between them and update them and add more data as I'm going. But the IDE here really makes it easy to do that. And again, it's got the try over here. So if I wanted to try a delete or try the put or post, I could certainly do that. I could put in sample data of how to do that and completely specify everything. Now, let's go back to the get though, because with the get, one additional thing that I did previously was that we also had, in the case of get, we could either get everything or we could get a single thing. Well, if we get a single thing, that means that we need a path parameter in here. I didn't use query parameters. I didn't use it where there's a question mark and query parameters. Instead, what I used was a path parameter. So I could add a path parameter by clicking on it and then click this plus here. And now I could specify, okay, I need to add an ID. This is going to be a path. I could click up. It does kind of hide a little bit. It's a little funny. But I can come in here and specify a string, number, integer, boolean, what have you. I could make it required or not by unchecking it and making it not colored. It is not required. Of course, I could come in here and say, you know what, I'm expecting a UUID. Now that does not add validation. All that does is give some type of a description of what I'm expecting there. You'll notice up here at the top, we now have a wildcard after the path for the ID. Also over here in the docs, you'll notice that it's not actually updated there yet, but it will be. Let me go ahead. If I click on view and reload. All right, so now that's come up. We see here that as a path parameter on the right-hand side, it is putting ID in there as a possible thing to put in. And we also got our comment there showing it's a UUID. So we could totally do that. Now, if I go to try, you'll notice that the try interface now has the ID there as an optional field, and we could put in, for instance, a UUID number, and I'll go ahead and paste one in there. I could put in a UUID like this. It creates the URL for us, and if I click send, now it'll go out and just get that individual record because it's looking for that UUID number. So again, it just makes it so easy to test things as we're going and creating the documentation. Now, if I come back If I come back over to the main point at the top, the Beachcast API that we created, now we can see in our OpenAPI, again, all of this has been created inside the documentation. So it just makes it real easy to use this. So that's all I have, is just this quick introduction to the OpenAPI specification and an easy way to create it using the Stoplight Studio. I hope you found this video helpful. If you liked the video, please like it down below. Remember to check out our community tab on the YouTube channel page. I put some updates there and I post from time to time. I'm going to be posting more often, and I hope you found this helpful. Thank you for coming by.